Hello children, welcome to Succeed e-learning app classes. Today's session I am going to talk about the Elixir of life. This is the lesson which is there for your class. This lesson is written by C.V. Raman. He was one of the well-known Indian scientists. He had given his valuable, thoughtful and important message through this lesson. The lesson which he talks about how important water is an essential to everyone, all the living beings, non-living beings, it requires water. So, here he would like to say that Elixir, what is the meaning of Elixir? Elixir means it is a divine drop. It also suggests that it is a magical drop which requires every living beings on the earth, even it requires for plants. Water is an essential part, without the water we would not live on the earth. So, he says that it is a amrita, which means it is a divine drop fallen from the heaven. So, every human beings needs water. Also he would explain in the further paragraphs, we would see that the geologists, where they understand that how the earth has been formed, and in the first paragraph he tells that he stands on the Lesbian, the desert place, where he stands and sees that the completely it is he could see the barren land, whereas he stands on other part of the world where the Nile river flows. There he stands and see the world, there it is full of greenery, the vegetation, and it exists, the human life and wildlife could be exist where the Nile river flows, a catchment area of Nile river. But whereas the other part of the world where he stands on the Lesbian desert, he sees that it is a desert, it is a barren land, there is no life, of human beings or any animals or plants. So, he would describes it in this way that the water is very important, where the water flows, the human being, a life can be exist. Geologist tells us that the Nile river flows from ancient time, and ancient civilization is being created by the Nile river. So, we can understand that the flow of water which created human life on the earth. And furthermore, he gives example of how water is important in our life. It is the most potent and wonderful thing which is available on the earth. Without water, we could not expect any of us to live on the earth. And he concludes that it is very essential for living on the earth. The author C.V. Raman describes about the countryside view or look, where he visits to the South Indian places. There he found the water, how it is created fonts, rainwater fed tanks. These are called rainwater fed tanks, which are essential to grow the crops. Especially when he visits to the South Indian parts of India, there he finds that so many farmers, they grow their crops throughout the year, because the rainfall has created the water tank, fed water tanks. These are called rainwater fed tanks. Especially he describes about this, because the rainfall, when the heavy rainfall which reaches some parts of the southern parts of the India, there they could make a small fonts, but that would not be in a proper or systematic way to grow their agricultural crops. One of the most important fact about rain and the soil, author describes that the soil which will get accumulated wherever the river catchment areas are there, especially in southern part of the India, the catchment areas where it is a fertile soil, where we can see that the crops are green and they would grow crops very well. So, this shows that the soil is required, the fertile soil is required, and the rain whenever it rains, the silt which get accumulated, this is shows that the power of water, the water which has got the most beautiful and powerful thing on that. So, that is how he describes it in the paragraph, and also it says that it is one of the finely the catchment areas, wherever the catchment areas are there, that all the areas what we call it as a fertile land, it is suitable to grow the crops. In the next paragraph, the author would like to know about what would be the reason for soil erosion. Soil erosion is one of the factor that why people would not be able to grow the crops. Okay. And soil erosion, the main cause of the soil erosion is surplus or excess water due to heavy rainfall. What happens? The earth topsoil would get washed away. This causes impossible for grow the crops. So, ultimately what happens? The farmers would go suffering. So, the poet or the author would like to say that what would be the reason. This makes the earth gullies and ravines. What is gullies and ravines? It makes them the soil which will become barren or which will not be suitable to grow the crops. So, this is he trying to say that there should be a proper systematic ways to find out to prevent the soil erosion. How would we prevent the soil erosion? Adopting different methods. One of the method which he says that adopting the contour plowing, where contour plowing is to make some method to protect your land under making bunds within your surrounding of the land where you grow the crops. This method he suggests it. Furthermore, he also says that terracing land farming, where you could make high places, wherever the high places of your growing crops land area, there you could make some certain steps to adopt to protect your soil. Water is the basis for life for human beings as well as plants. So, water is contained in the human or the animal body. So, without the physiological activity, it is impossible to function the human body or animal body. Therefore, the author describes that everyone should have to required water. The amount of water is required, it is essentially it is there in our human body. And then furthermore, he describes that the source of water on earth is mainly or the two of them. One is that rainfall and another one is that snowfall. In this way, we would receive the water on the earth. When the rain is fallen, then the water would get deposited or accumulated, or what we say that would all get under the surface. Then we would have to the underground water, that is the one the source of water, underground water, and the second one where the rivers are there or where the snow will get melt and then it would get transferred as a water. So, these are the two sources of water. So, it is each other connected each other, one would be the soil erosion and another one which is the excessive rainfall. These are the two interconnected. Due to this adequate proper study would help us to preserve the water for the future life. Conservation of water supplies results in afforestation. Thus, what we would adopt, we have to plant more trees in order to protect the top soil of the earth, and therefore, he would conclude that we need to have to preserve the water for the entire year to grow the crops. So, wherever the possible places to grow the plants, we would have to adopt and we would have to grow the plants. Author emphasizes that we need to create civilized forest. Civilized forest means the man-made forest. Here we would see that the untamed jungle, how it is untamed jungle which created on the earth. Similar to that, we need to create or adopt a policy that where we could have lots of varieties of trees where it exist on the earth like a civilized forest. This method will help us to preserve the soil and preserve the vegetation on the earth. To conserve the water, it would help us, not only the movement of water would help us to grow the crops, and also it can help us the internal waterways. We could hear much about the programs about rail or the roadways, but we have not heard about anything which is adopted in the waterways in the sense that the boats and the barges, through them we could go from one place to another place. Like internal waterways, we need to adopt programs where we can emphasize and we can have more internal waterways. Rather, we got the government would announce the programs of rail or road, construction of road, but we haven't heard about anything which is related to the internal waterways. This would help us subsidiary, which means additional ways to find out to make it a ease moment or to conserve the water, or we could find out some solutions through the waterways. This is one of the method the poet or the author would suggest. And then in the countryside, where we see that lot of farmers would require them the water, the source of water, only they would expect that the rainfall, but in other way they could also make use of water resources like underground water. The plenty of underground water is available on the surface of earth. This would enable them to grow their crops more like double times. But how would they do that? It requires the water, the underground water. For that they need hydroelectricity. So, the small streams, the rivers, they could have more number of hydroelectricity producing centers. So, that what would happen, the countryside people would make their earnings better, grow their crops better. So, this way the author gives them an suggestion to have more hydroelectricity centers than the internal waterways. This would enable the countryside people, the village people would have a better livelihood. To conclude this lesson, the poet would express that the water is commonest liquid of all the forms, and also it is uncommonest form of all the liquids. It is an amazing properties it has having, and it would have giving life of animal and plant. So, therefore, water, how it is important in our life, preserving water is essential on the earth. So, therefore, the C.V. Raman, the writer of this lesson, would expresses various methods and various ideas which will help human life, peaceful life, to lead a peaceful life, to enjoyable life on the earth. So, therefore, I would say that it is very hard time for all of us to preserve the water. Water is the main source for human life and animal life. So, what happens? Everybody would lead a happy and peaceful life on the earth. There would not have any battles because of the water. This is the end of the lesson, children. Thanks for watching. For more lessons, please tune into Succeed e-learning app.